Well, hey everyone, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. That's nearly 100 years of customer-focused innovation and service, which has made La Marzocco a household name around the world. You can find their machines at some of the best coffee bars anywhere because of that dedication to making the coffee retailer, that's you, successful. And that shows in all of the products that they create, such as the KB90 espresso machine, which introduced straight-in locking portafilters for barista ergonomics, the scales in the drip tray that enable you to have more accurate espresso extraction, and also the auto flush function in the group heads that keeps your machine clean. La Marzocco is available to help you select the right equipment for your needs. All you need to do is reach out to one of their salespeople by emailing info@lamarzocousa.com. You should also visit their website, lamarzocousa.com. Today's Shift Break episode is also brought to you by Espressly, creating branded mobile apps for your business that allows your customers to have an amazing experience with a convenient option of mobile ordering. With Espressly, it's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. The data is stored in the app, and this integrates with some of the world's best payment processing systems, including Square. So there's a lot to love here, and if you're in the market for a mobile app or mobile ordering, this is a company to look into. To find out more and get started today, go visit them over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everyone. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about longevity, sort of in praise of long-term employment versus sort of bouncing around from place to place. And, maybe this will sound like an old guy, yelling at a cloud or whatever. I guess I'm old enough to not care how it sounds necessarily, but this kind of came to me over the weekend as I was visiting some cafes in New York City. We happened upon a barista working at a cafe who had been simply a barista for 12 years at this one store, has a family, lives nearby, like a couple blocks down, plays in the park with his kids across the street from the coffee shop. And there was something so refreshing about the contentment that this individual had around this simple setup. And so it got me thinking about a few things. One, there's a lot to see in the world. There's a lot to see in terms of, coffee bars and different experiences, and we can get FOMO when it comes to looking at other people's coffee bar setups and equipment that they get to work on and different types of materials used in the build out. And we kind of desire with our eyes to be there ourselves and experience it. But, it's kind of like Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. We go there, we work for a place, and it has this big reputation in our mind, and maybe it even lives up to it just a little bit when we are new. But then the realities of the day-to-day start to settle in. The incongruities of any business out there, no business is perfect, start to weigh heavily on the ideals that we had built up in our mind, and they seem to be in contrast. As time goes on, 1 year passes, 2 years pass, the tension continues to build until we figure we got to relieve the tension by going to a new shop, finding a better place. And we use the term like, I just need to grow. I want a place where I can grow. Thinking that you need to keep advancing by switching jobs, by switching cities, and so forth. Now, there are obviously other reasons why somebody might want to move away from their city or their job. It's just not sustainable financially for them to do so, and that's fine. I'm not really talking about that. What I'm talking about is people that jump around from job to job because the ideals that they have for a job aren't met exactly. And what I think happens oftentimes is it sets us back more than it advances us. Personally speaking, I would rather work in a mediocre coffee job where I had some benefit, but then there were some drawbacks, of course, for many, many years than work for a bunch of different companies for just 8 months to a year at a time. Because while I might get to learn how to use a new piece of equipment, I might learn how to cup coffee a little bit better, There might be some, technical benefits from jumping from job to job, but you need time to develop yourself, time in boredom, time in the valleys of your professional journey. And if you refuse yourself the low parts, if you duck out when things get hard, and you search for something that is just like another dopamine hit of this new energy. And the only way to know if this is what you're doing is to be honest with yourself about your motivations for why you want to move on from a job. I will say some of the best moments of growth for me professionally did not happen in places where all of my needs were met, where all of my ideals were fulfilled, where it was easy and ergonomic and tasty and predictable and consistent, and I had great bosses. So much, as I look back, was based on the times where I just really did not like my job, and I did not really have what I wanted and what I thought I needed. But I grew a lot. This is not a call to put up with horrible circumstances, but sometimes I think that we are a little bit too quick to dismiss a place and then check out of a situation, and in the process leave all this growth on the table. We don't become a mature professional. We just become a collector of skills without having any kind of foundation of personality and grit to be able to take on better roles. So we become eggheads. We become so smart in, the topic of coffee, but we have no street skills in coffee. We don't develop as people. We develop as content libraries. And I think we need to dial it back just a little bit. I would love to see more people stick with functional imperfection longer than bouncing around to seek perfection in short-term bursts. Personally, I would probably favor somebody who has a track record of longer-term employment in a place, not necessarily because I think, I'm going to be next and this person's just going to, be with me for a year and then they're going to go find themselves in another place, right? There is part of it in that, but the other part is I don't think that this person is going to be a very mature individual. I don't think they have much motivation to be, because what they might be doing is going from place to place, trying to find meaning or get spoon-fed meaning by other people. It doesn't do any favors to our dignity as people to go into the workplace and expect the workplace to define who we are. So when we stop idealizing the workplace as a place to give us meaning, we can be a little bit more open to the lessons that imperfect circumstances can teach us. And that's when we start to grow. And that's when we start to find more contentment. And that's when you find, I've been here for 10 years and maybe there was a couple of times that I wanted to quit, but actually it's turned out really well and it was the right move not to move when I did. There's probably a lot of you out there who can attest to this, and I think it's worth considering. It's not always going to be right for you. Like I said in the beginning, there's circumstances that you do need to leave, and I'm never a fan of putting up with things that are a real threat to you. But I do think it's worth considering that we are generally trying to avoid discomfort. And because of that, we need to be a little skeptical of our initial impulses to move away from something and maybe try leaning into it a little bit. No matter how much information you collect and how many different places you work, sometimes it's just not going to be a replacement for the kind of lessons you can learn about yourself, the industry, etc., from long-term employment in imperfect situations. So I hope that this episode has been helpful for you. It's got you to think a little bit about your career and the next move that you need to make. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.